A while ago, I made a video about the Dogma 95 movement. Now, a lot of people liked this video. It did pretty well, especially for my channel, so I thought I would give it another shot and make another one of these videos. This time, I want to talk about a different film movement that came on the scene a little bit later than Dogma 95. A lot of people consider this movement to be a successor, even, to Dogma 95. That's right. Today I am talking about the mumblecore film movement. Now, mumblecore was a little bit different than Dogma. It was a lot less organized, I guess you could say. It didn't have a manifesto, and it originated in a much more organic way. Instead of being intentionally manufactured, this movement arose out of many different filmmakers all across the world having similar ideas and similar drives to make movies. This also means that unlike Dogma, there are no hard and fast rules for what does or doesn't make a movie a mumblecore feature. There are many films that some might consider to be a part of the genre, but others don't. There's no list of qualities a mumblecore film must have, no board that officially titles a film mumblecore. However, there is one movie that we know for sure did start the movement, and that movie is Andrew Bujalski's 2002 debut feature, Funny Ha Ha. Funny Ha Ha is a film that follows a young college graduate named Marnie and her everyday adventures and misadventures trying to get a job and get in a steady relationship. It doesn't have a plot. It's not an insult, it just simply doesn't have a plot. There's no 3-act structure or real sequence of events. Stuff just happens and the movie ends. That's something about every mumblecore movie. There's no real narrative. This isn't a new thing, though. Other films, way earlier than any mumblecore movie, did this as well. The French New Wave of the mid-20th century often did this. Mumblecore is actually heavily inspired by the French New Wave. A good example of a French New Wave film that follows a similar mumblecore format would be Agnes Varda's Cleo from 5 to 7. Woody Allen is an example of a filmmaker who made films like this, Annie Hall and Manhattan being two great examples. John Cassavetes did as well, Shadows and Faces being two good examples, and Slacker by Richard Linklater is about as close to mumblecore as you can get without being an actual mumblecore film. However, Funny Ha Ha brought this concept of a slice-of-life feature to new life by bringing it into a decade where filmmaking was getting more accessible than ever before due to the advent of two major new technologies: cheap and accessible digital cameras and the internet. The film is heavily steeped in the early 2000s culture, being very representative of this zennial mindset, people born between the mid-70s and early 80s. This was exactly the era that Andrew Bujalski was born into, being a 1977 baby. Funny Ha Ha was not shot on digital, but instead on 16mm film. It still had a very low budget, though. It premiered at the Sidewalk Moving Picture Fest in the summer of 2002, and it wasn't until 2005 that it got a wider release on DVD, so you could say this particular film flew under the radar for a while. It was just a bit too ahead of its time, I guess you could say. It was 3 years later, 2005, when mumblecore really got its footing and came into its own, you could say. 2005 marked a stable year in the mumblecore genre. Even though the first mumblecore movie came out in 2002, I would consider 2005 the real birth of the movement in my eyes. I would say the birthplace of the mumblecore movement would be the South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas. 3 new, possibly 4 new, major mumblecore films premiered there. Those films are The Puffy Chair by the Duplass brothers, Kissing on the Mouth by Joe Swanberg, and Andrew Bujalski's second ever feature, Mutual Appreciation. Another movie, Ty West's The Roost, premiered there as well. However, that movie is a bit less influential for the overall mumblecore movement and more influential for a specific subgenre of mumblecore that is often touted as mumblegore or simply a mumblecore horror movie. It just takes ideas present in the mumblecore genre and fuses them with the horror genre. The film, The Puffy Chair, follows a group of young people's misadventures on their journey to acquire a, you guessed it, puffy chair. It was shot on a Panasonic digital camcorder for only $15,000 and the state of Maine, despite taking place in North Carolina. It used a heavily improvised and guerrilla fashion of filmmaking, and premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2005, where the rights were acquired by Netflix. But remember, this was 2005, and even though it came out in 2006, Netflix still did not have their streaming service yet. This was released exclusively by Netflix's then only market at the time, DVD by mail sales. One of the other major mumblecore films screened at this fest was Kissing on the Mouth by Joe Swanberg, who would go on to become a very influential figure in the mumblecore space. This movie is similar to Funny Haha in that it follows a young college graduate and her misadventures, trying to find a place in the world where she belongs while grappling with relationships. Yeah, it's basically the exact same plot, and it's a plot that a lot of other mumblecore movies, especially ones directed by Joe Swanberg, would follow. However, there is something that separates this film from its contemporaries. That is, the graphic, unsimulated in this movie. The final film I want to talk about that premiered at the South by Southwest Festival is Mutual Appreciation, the second feature from Andrew Bujalski, the director of Funny Haha. This movie is more of the same, following a group of young people trying to figure out where they fit in the world, but there is a couple noteworthy elements. One, this is shot in black and white, and also that it made use of music a lot as a storytelling device, and that's something that a lot of other mumblecore movies would go on to use as a device, music heavily linking in with the story elements. However, these movies weren't the only films released in 2005 that you might consider to be part of the mumblecore genre. There are two others that I would like to mention briefly. One is Miranda July's Me and You and Everyone We Know, and the other is Scott Coffey's L.E. Parker. Former follows a group of several different people from several different backgrounds, all living in the same community, and they're overlapping and entwining stories. It is still a slice of life film. It's people who have all different types of lives, and how their lives overlap and connect, and it's just this very grand story about the human experience. Now, L.E. Parker is a bit different. It's a character study of a young and up-and-coming actress trying to make her way in Hollywood. It was shot on video and has a very similar low-budget styling that would be present in mumblecore films, despite not having the same origins and not following all of the same formulas. It's still widely considered one of the earliest mumblecore features. Throughout the rest of the 2000s, the mumblecore movement continued to flourish. Joe Swanberg, the Duplass brothers, and Andrew Bujalski all continued to make movies throughout the 2000s. LOL in 2006, Baghead in 2008, which is also a mumblecore movie, and Beeswax in 2009 are examples of this. 2006 would also be the year that Young American Bodies would premiere on the website nerve.com and later air on the IFC channel. Young American Bodies is the first ever mumblecore web series, and it lasted 3 seasons from 2006 to 2009. It was written by Chris Williams, Carl Jacobs, and Joe Swanberg. Speaking of Joe Swanberg, his previously mentioned 2006 film, LOL, is the first film to star Greta Gerwig.
Oh my god, it's Albert Einstein!
She would become a very important and influential figure in the mumblecore space, appearing in many mumblecore features. The next of which being Joe Swanberg's 2007 film, Hannah Takes the Stairs. This would become one of the most well-known and recognizable films to come out of the movement, and it even further propelled the movement into popularity. It also attracted attention of some more well-known filmmakers. The film is also known for its vast cast of mumblecore greats, including Bujalski and Duplass. 2007 also brought us another important feature, Frownland by Ronald Bronstein. This movie is one that takes the mumblecore genre in a bit of a different direction, a much more abrasive and gritty direction. It follows a young, very sweaty man named Keith, who lives in a very gritty and disturbing underbelly of New York City. The style of just making these mumblecore features that feature these very upsetting people, to say the least, would be continued in Ronald Bronstein's wife, Mary Bronstein's 2008 feature film, Yeast, which also happened to star Greta Gerwig. Another film that features a similar style is a movie directed by the Safdie brothers, their first ever feature, Daddy Longlegs, from 2009. It follows a recently divorced man, played by Ronald Bronstein actually, and the Safdie brothers would later go on to become very successful filmmakers in their own right, outside of the mumblecore genre, with their 2017 film Good Time and their 2019 film Uncut Gems. Both films garnered great successes for them. It was around this time that mumblecore reached its peak, with many other first-time filmmakers making their mark on the genre. Many of these filmmakers would also later go on to create other very successful movies. Some of the biggest examples of this were Barry Jenkins and Damien Chazelle. Barry Jenkins with Moonlight, and Damien Chazelle with La La Land. Think back to what I said about 2007, and it takes the stairs. The filmmaker I was referring to then was Noah Baumbach, who is known for his work with Wes Anderson. He also made his own very successful film, the most notable of which was 2005's The Squid and the Whale. After Noah Baumbach watched Joe Swanberg's feature, Hannah Takes the Stairs, he produced his next film, Alexander the Last, which was where he met actress Greta Gerwig. This would lead to an incredibly close collaboration and overall relationship between the two that would result in quite possibly the most popular mumblecore film of all time. 2011 would be a very important year at mumblecore. Mainly, it would be a very important year for Joe Swanberg. This is because he released 6 different movies that year. Yes, he released 6 whole movies that he himself directed. All were feature films. Uncle Kent, Silver Bullets, Caitlin Plays Herself, Autoerotic, Art History, and The Zone. 2012 would be the year when the collaboration between Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig would finally pay off. Baumbach casted Gerwig in his 2010 film, Greenberg, which was a collaboration between him and his at the time wife, Jennifer Jason Leigh. This film was not a mumblecore movie, but his next film would be. This next film would be the film he co-wrote with Greta Gerwig, Frances Ha. The film is much like other mumblecore films in that it follows a recently graduated young woman named Frances as she tries to navigate her everyday life. It's shot in a very amateur style on a consumer-grade digital Canon photography camera. Despite the upgraded scale, it still keeps the slice-of-life nature. It starts at a random point in her life and ends at just as random of a point. There's no real conclusion, some threads get wrapped up, and others do not. It's a mumblecore movie in the truest sense of the word. The film premiered at the exclusive Telluride Film Festival in September of 2012 and got a wide release in early 2013. The film became quickly beloved by audiences and critics alike, being the most well-received mumblecore movie to date. Many consider Frances Ha to be the last true mumblecore film. It's great to have a little conclusion film, a movie that feels like it is what all of these other films have been leading up to. That's what Frances Ha feels like, and I feel like that's why so many people mark it as the end of the genre. However, to say that mumblecore completely died out past 2012 would be just a blatant lie. In truth, it still is around. However, it's kind of evolved in a way. Many young filmmakers are still making mumblecore movies, or at least mumblecore adjacent movies. We can never really say for certain what is mumblecore. Would the movie Shithouse from 2020, directed by Cooper Raiff, be mumblecore? How about Shiva Baby by Emma Slegman from the same year? Maybe even Funny Pages by Owen Klein. Are they mumblecore? I mean, they certainly have all the characteristics of mumblecore. So why don't we all consider them mumblecore? Well, in truth, I don't think mumblecore is really a genre. It's more of a mindset. A mindset that arose at a very particular time in the history of filmmaking, when it was just starting to become more accessible to the common man. Mumblecore represented that time in cinema, a time that we're pretty far removed from nowadays. While movies may still come out that feel like mumblecore or inspired by mumblecore, I don't really think there can be another real mumblecore movie, not in the same way. Maybe you could say that we are in the second wave of mumblecore, where people are taking the genre, taking the characteristics of the genre, and stepping outside the box with them, including other characteristics from other genres, really taking those ideas to the next level and viewing them through the mindset, through the lens of the modern young person. Maybe we're due for some kind of mumblecore revival in the next decade. I don't know. This type of thing is unpredictable, and there's no way to tell you what will happen with the future of mumblecore. But I do know is what happened in the past. How mumblecore started, why it became so big, and the people that were involved with it. And I think I did a pretty good job at laying that out for you. If you think I did so too, please leave me a like and subscribe to the channel. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.